Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the Ashe Academy's Inspire, Uplift, Engage podcast. I'm Sammy Ashe, your host, and today we are joined by Iris Nevins. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So let's get into a little introduction before we go through these questions. I'm really curious about your career trajectory, how you got to where you are now. Trying to help people that are looking to, follow your footsteps or create their own path, because we like unique people, but sometimes they want to do what you do. So let's see, kind of uncover those layers and see where they could be going to. So Iris Nevins is co-founder, CEO, and NFT producer, head misfit, I love that part, of Umba Daima. Former teacher, community activist, and artist who became a software engineer after realizing that technology could be used to reduce socioeconomic inequality. So that's awesome. That's super impactful. Kind of bridging. I feel like you bridge STEM and art the same way that I love to do so. So let's talk about your career journey. Like, where did you start, and how did you get to where you are today?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's interesting. My background is pretty diverse. It's pretty kind of wide ranging. So I haven't spent more than a few years doing one specific thing. But essentially after college, I went into education and community organizing. So I was a full-time teacher. I was doing social studies. I taught everything from 6th grade to 10th grade AP classes. And I also was doing community organizing work on the side as a volunteer, and working with local groups, local organizations, politicians, et cetera. That work led me to realize that we didn't really have effective ways for organizing large groups of people. It's actually very difficult to take a group of 1, 2, 3, 4,000 people that are passionate about the same thing and to get them to collaborate and to actually produce outcomes. It's really hard. And so, as I was doing my organizing work, I started thinking, okay, how can we create systems and processes to, help facilitate this collaboration and productivity? And that led me to tech. Right. The only way to really do that effectively is through technology. So, but I couldn't find the tools that I felt were really needed to do that kind of work. So I decided to leave my job and leave my organizing and become a software engineer. I went to a coding bootcamp in San Francisco, did that for about 4 months. And then 2 months after, got a job at MailChimp as a junior engineer.
Wait a minute, I gotta stop you right there. Just one day you were like, you know what, I'm gonna be a software engineer, and it was that quick to turn it around. Like I feel like especially for career changers or people who are like looking for a transition, it could really be like a 6-month process.
Yeah, well, it actually
did you know that before?
In total, it took a year. It took a full year. What happened is that once I decided that I wanted to go to a boot camp, I sat down, I created a whole plan, and I created a 1-year plan. And so I had a semester left that I had to finish of teaching. So throughout that semester, I was studying, preparing to apply to these boot camp programs. And then as I got to around the spring of that semester, I started applying to boot camps. And then by the time I was maybe about a month out from the end of the school year, I had gotten accepted. And so then I went to the boot camp, did that for 4 months. It was a 4-month program. And then it took another 2 months to get a job. So altogether, it was literally exactly almost 1 year in order to make the transition.
Beautiful, beautiful. Sorry, just wanted to, highlight that, like, hey, if you're looking to transition or change your career, like, it doesn't have to be this like long drawn out process. You might just have to plan, and you can have what you want.
Absolutely. Just another quick point on that is, my journey was definitely faster than a lot of other folks that were doing the same thing. I had peers that it took them 6, 7, 8 months, sometimes even a year for some of them to actually find a job. My journey isn't everyone's journey, but there are definitely ways to work smarter and not harder. And so I highly recommend looking into that, especially if you don't have ample savings, or if you don't have, a number of the folks that did the program with me, they either had a partner that was earning a lot of money, or they had parents that had a lot of money, or whatever. So they had this kind of cushion that kind of allowed them to kind of take their time and drag it out. I didn't have that. I had to figure it out quickly, or I'd be, shit out of luck. So and then there are some folks who like have limitations. Maybe you're a single mom, or you have kids and things like that. So in that case, you're going to need to take a different kind of journey than the one that I took. But at the end of the day, just do your research and have a plan.
Absolutely, absolutely. So you're a junior engineer, software engineer. How was that compared to guiding the youth? I won't call them children. They were older than the youth, but no.
Well, some of them were really young. Man, my sixth graders. My favorite grade to teach was sixth grade.
Okay,
and I loved those sixth graders. Some of my absolute favorite memories from being a teacher are from my sixth graders, because they're at that age where they still have this passion for life, and they're just excited all the time. And the specific school that I was working at, they all wanted to learn. They were just so curious. You ask a question and everybody raises their hand and is like fighting to answer. And it's like the curiosity and the excitement and the passion, it was just, and the energy was just really special. And having taught sixth grade, eighth grade, ninth grade, and 10th grade, you kind of see how over time the kids kind of become more quiet, more reserved, more insecure, more like, self criticizing. I mean, it's just, it's really interesting. But anyways,
the psychology of it all.
Yeah, I loved being an educator. Educating, facilitation, programming is probably my favorite thing to do. And I was really good at it. And so when it was time to become a software engineer, I was being driven by a different passion, a different interest. And so in the beginning, I was able to enjoy it, and I was able to be really excited, to be really into it, because I had a purpose. But it's not as fun. It's a lot more tedious. It's a lot more mental work, whereas teaching is a lot more emotional heart work, right? And so it requires a lot of downtime, a lot of quiet. You got to have time to think, and it's like solving a really hard puzzle every day. And sometimes it takes 3 weeks to solve the puzzle. And so just for those 3 weeks, you're just like thinking and like researching and like testing out ideas and like seeing what works and what doesn't work, which is very tedious and sometimes isolating as well. So after a while, I really just started I started to, what's the word?
Gravitate?
Yes, I started to gravitate more so towards, it's funny, everywhere I go, I do programming, towards like helping to improve like the systems and the processes at my company. So I started like helping revamp the interview process to be more inclusive, and to kind of remove some of the biases that were in it. And then that led to helping create like trainings and a whole new interview process. And then eventually I became a manager. So, I realized pretty quickly that as much as I am passionate about tech and the power of tech, I'm much more passionate about people and, working with people and helping to create systems that support people.
Absolutely. I mean, I've been developing a conversation on dream jobs, and even been asking people on a poll on LinkedIn, like, has your idea of a dream job like changed throughout your career? And I don't think it really has for me because the job itself, like what I want out of the job, is essentially the same thing. It's like people, like communicating, helping other people, like those are the things that are pretty consistent. The title just changes. Even if I'm jumping to a different industry, like I'm looking for the same exact things out of these positions. So I find that interesting, even though you move from being a teacher all the way to engineering manager, like essentially the same things you love out of it or love about it are the same things all the way through.
Yeah.
So hopefully you had some great teams to communicate with before you transitioned into your own thing. I guess before we get into that, did you have any mentors along the way that
I
kind of guided
did.
you? Yeah. Okay.
I did. It's funny. I've had so many mentors, and a lot of them I've lost touch with, which, in
Oh no.
retrospect, I feel bad about. But I've just lived so many lives. It's hard to keep track of everyone. When I was a teacher, I actually got paired with the teacher that had won best teacher in the county. I think she may have won multiple times. I'm not, I can't remember, but she was a phenomenal teacher and everyone had rave reviews about her. And so she helped me a lot, especially when it came to being the cool, fun teacher, but also not letting the students like walk all over you, which they will do if you let them. So that was really helpful. Then when I was doing my boot camp, I had actually started reaching out to different people on LinkedIn that had been through a boot camp or had some sort of like relevant programming experience. And I was able to find a few mentors that way that helped me through different parts of the program. There was also a group called Breaking into Startups that helped me find a scholarship and helped me raise money to help me get through that period of time. They now have a company called Career Karma that helps people get careers in technology. They just raised $40 million a few weeks
Beautiful,
ago. I'm
beautiful.
very proud of them. And I was kind of one of their like first test subjects. So, I've definitely had a lot of support when I went into tech. Um, I was paired with a mentor right away, a technical mentor as a junior engineer. And then once I became a manager, one of the senior directors of engineering became my mentor, and he worked with me continuously as well. And so I've had a lot of support throughout the years. Now as a founder, I have at least two advisors, one in particular that help. We probably talk every single week on the phone. And he helps me with, business decisions and fundraising. And we don't even have like a formal advisor. He's just a mentor. We don't have a formal agreement. So I've had a lot of support throughout the years. Absolutely.
Beautiful. It's beautiful. I unfortunately didn't have a whole bunch of mentors along the way, but I did really lean into that peer uplift. Like we're gonna all figure it out together,
Mm-hmm.
and help each other. Whatever you're doing, I'm doing it too. Let's get there eventually. So that's awesome that you had so much support. So let's talk about how Umba Daima came into being. Like, what was the need? What was the problem you were solving? And
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So, um, Umba Daima was actually inspired by some trips that I had made overseas. I, I was lucky enough as a kid to go to this really cool international program for 2 years. I got to go to school with kids from all over the world, and and so I've been able to travel, since then, to visit various friends in these different countries. So, on one of my trips, I was in well, on all of my trips, I would go to the local marketplace to buy art, and I had learned how to collect art from my mom. And then when I was in Ghana at the end of 2020, I I went to the marketplace and met this artist that had really amazing work, and we were just talking. I was asking her if she had a website, if she had an online presence, like how is she getting her art outside of Ghana, because the prices that she was charging locally were just way lower than what she could charge if she was selling to buyers overseas.
Mhm.
And so that really kind of sparked the idea of creating some sort of online like store, e-commerce platform, or something of that nature to help these really talented artists get their art seen in Western markets. So that was the original version of Umba Daima. We launched the whole store. We had about 8 or 9 artists that were on there, all from Africa and the Caribbean. We were selling prints and paintings. And then shortly after we launched, we started learning about NFTs. And we realized that NFTs were so new, so revolutionary, so innovative, and we're probably going to disrupt every industry. And we just thought, well, we already have started this business. We might as well move into some sort of niche, area where we can be one of the first, right? That would give us, first mover advantage and in an opportunity to have a much bigger impact than what we were originally thinking. So that's really how it started. Once we transitioned into NFTs, it was really about testing out how we could add value, how we could help artists, how we could support the ecosystem, how we could make it something that many different people of diverse backgrounds could benefit from. And so it's been quite a process of trying to figure out what that is and how to also make money at the same time, and to not just do the same thing that everybody else seems to want to do, which, if I'm being honest, is to launch an NFT marketplace. That's everyone's kind of go-to, is let's launch a marketplace, let's launch a marketplace. And it's like, we don't necessarily want to launch another marketplace. There's so many out there. So, it's been a process of trying to figure out how to stay true to our values, while also adding value and also making money.
Awesome. Now you said NFTs, and we did have an episode last season kind of describing and touching a little bit upon non-fungible tokens. But can you give us a good, your understanding, or I guess somewhat introductory and understanding of NFTs? And I don't know if that kind of goes into the metaverse. I'm kind of immersing myself into all this stuff as well, like the Web3. Like, how do all of these things connect to, I guess, the physical world and beyond for you, and how you're impacting artists' lives?
Yeah. So, okay. So what are NFTs and how do NFTs impact artists?
Mhm.
Okay. So NFT
Yeah, I
stands
kind of
for,
asked a lot of different questions in the same
okay.
question. Sorry.
Okay. So NFT stands for non-fungible token. Non-fungible means unique, and token really refers to a digital asset. In this context, a digital asset on the blockchain. Okay, so if you're talking about blockchain technology, usually any sort of asset is going to be referred to as a token. There's 2 different types. You have fungible, which is your Bitcoins, your Dogecoins, your ETHs, right? Those are digital assets that are all the same. So, when Bitcoin is created, there's a certain supply of Bitcoin that's put out to the market, but every single Bitcoin within that supply has the same value. Okay. Now, when you're talking about non-fungible tokens, you're talking about digital assets that are put out into the market where every single one is unique. Okay. And so each person can go and create their own unique non-fungible token and sell it. And so what these tokens are used for is for digitizing art and turning them into digital assets. You can digitize other things as well. Like you can turn a house into an NFT. You can turn a deed, you can turn, song lyrics. I mean, you can really take anything and package it and sell it as an NFT. It's just a way to turn something into a digital asset. And then once it's created on the blockchain, now you can track all of the movements of that asset into perpetuity. So you can see what it's been bought for, who's been trading it, what the market activity has been, all of that type of stuff. So the reason why it's really important for creators, and I think it's important not to think of it as just artists, like professional artists, right? But just creators in general, is that historically it's been really difficult to monetize art, and society hasn't always placed a lot of value on art. Even though we consume art, we're not always willing to pay for it, right? And so what happens is the artists suffer. And so what this does is it allows art to more easily be turned into an asset, which creates a greater incentive for people to buy it. So not only are you buying the art because you like it, but you're also buying it because there's some sort of potential upside, and you can now store your capital or your money or your whatever your worth into this asset just as easily as you might put it into a house or a stock or something like that. And so it's just a great opportunity for artists to now be able to earn more than they were able to earn before. You can also use NFTs to build a community of people that you provide special opportunities or access to. You can create membership communities. And so it can also be used to improve the relationship between artists and fans as well, and to create a more mutually beneficial relationship.
Awesome. I love the work that you're doing. I love that it is kind of bringing tech into the art space and back and forth. And when I say art, that's all, let's say creative space. So it doesn't just sound like an actual, I don't even know the way to describe, just an artist who's painting or whatnot. It's all different creative forms. And then this is like where it started out. It is Black folks, people of color, even beyond that, where we usually don't see these spaces inhabited by ourselves. And I'm feeling like there's a lot more melanin in these spaces than previously in other industries right now. Is that your perspective? Would you like to see a lot more melanin? Like you're in it. I'm outside looking in, saying like, okay, there's a lot of us making money in these spaces, but there's always more room for more of us.
Yeah. So I think that the NFT space has definitely, there's a lot more Black people in it than there was a year ago, for sure. I think that is largely in part by the work that we've done, that my organization has done to help build community and visibility around Black artists. And some of the most successful Black artists in the NFT space, we were able to be a crucial part of their journey. So we're really proud of that. And I think there's always more opportunity to bring more Black people in. I think one of the things that's missing is more Black collectors, because when it comes to collecting art, the collector is the person that essentially decides the value, right, of the art. The artist can set the price at whatever they want to set it at, but if the art, it's up to the collector to actually buy it, right? And so what that means is that the less Black collectors that we have in the space, the less opportunity, the less people there are going to be that kind of value Black art the way that it should be valued. Not that other communities won't value Black art, but we all have our biases, whether it's explicit or implicit. And I think that does play a role in Black artists' abilities to make sales. So, I think that in general, it's important for us to be bringing more Black people into the ecosystem as not just creators, but also participants, right? And collectors. And then the other thing is that the technology itself can be used for more than just NFTs. Sorry, more than just art. the technology itself can be used for a lot of different things, and it can be used for use cases around like data tracking, and records and things like that. Blockchain technology is a really, really robust technology that can be used in a lot of different ways. And so I think it's really important for Black business owners, Black founders, Black entrepreneurs to be really kind of getting ahead of things by taking a deep dive into the tech and figuring out, is there a way that this technology can solve some sort of problem in my industry, or can help me build a better, more effective, more profitable business, because that's what other founders are doing. And if Black people wait for, if we wait too long, then instead of them disrupting the industry, they're going to be the ones disrupted.
All right, shout out to those budding futurists. It's time to get on now. Don't wait any longer. Learn. I mean, this conversation enough is, stepping stone to learning more. So thank you so much. I feel like I want people to do more research. We will give them all of the secret sauce right now.
DYOR. DYOR, do your own research.
Do your own research. All right, do your own research. Yes, you heard it here. Very much agree with that I'm a lifelong learner for that reason. You got to do it. So next question is kind of just on a personal note. What would you say is the best advice you've received through the years?
Through the years, that's a good question. Through the years.
We could do with the worst advice you received as the flip side. Will that come to you more quickly?
It's hard for me to think of a specific thing that someone said to me that was a specific like statement that someone said to me of advice. It's just not coming to me right now. I will say that I think the thing that has been the most helpful for me is my parents. And I think the way that they raised me, my mom, I think, did a really good job of helping me be very, very strategic minded. So I'm always coming from a place of like strategy, planning, organization, right? I think that has been very helpful. But my dad was the sports guy. And my dad was the one that had me doing sports at a really young age. He had me running track and field, which is probably one of the hardest sports in the world. I think track, cross country is up there with like soccer, and wrestling is like one of the hardest sports. And it's the reason why it's really hard is because it's actually very painful. It's a very physically painful and exhausting sport. I've played basketball, I've played a bunch of sports. Nothing compares to the pain that you feel when you have to run as fast as your body physically can, and when you have to train every single day doing the same thing over and over, of pushing your body to that ultimate limit. And so, doing the things that I've done over the last few years has, in some cases, been really difficult. Even right now, as a founder, it's really hard. Founders' depression is a really serious thing. And there's a lot of moments where I want to give up. And I always go back to just hearing my dad's voice telling me, don't give up, persevere, push through, like fight through. And so, yeah, I think that just, I don't know. I think that has been very valuable, because a lot of people do give up when on these kinds of journeys.
I could only imagine. So who or what advice missed the mark for you where you're like, oh, I'm glad I didn't listen to that. Like that could have really been a stumbling stone for me if I did.
Um, huh. Let's see. That's a good question. I mean, there's definitely been a number of cases where people have tried to recommend my company go in a certain direction, like, oh, you should build this type of product or you should provide this type of service or, those kinds of things. And oftentimes people will you'll have your idea, you'll have your vision, and people will try to pull you away from your vision or say that vision is not good enough or it's not going to work. Like, why don't you try this other thing? And so I think just like having conviction in knowing my purpose and knowing what I want to accomplish has been really important in making sure that I don't get sidetracked, because people will sidetrack you and then they're not there to deal with the consequences.
Ooh, first pastor of the season. They will not be there to deal with the consequences of that decision. That's the worst part. Come on,
it's a real thing. It's a real thing.
That hit me. Okay, so I think that we didn't put a name on it, but whoever out there was doing that, you gotta let it go. That wasn't for us. But anyway, what brings you joy?
That's a great question. Music, art, film, dance. I love art. I wish, if I wasn't working so much to try and keep to build a sustainable business, I would probably be consuming a lot more art. I also love my family, in particular my boyfriend, my dog. We have our little family here, and they definitely help. They just help me keep going, on a day-to-day basis. I'm always just very thankful that I have them.
Awesome. What does success mean to you?
I think success means achieving your goals. I think it's that simple. There's different kinds of success, but for me, it's like I set a goal and I met the goal. Or at least I came somewhere close enough that I can be satisfied.
Okay, so what would you say is like your proudest achievement thus far?
My proudest achievement.
This is a super reflective conversation. I'm sorry. It's just like...
My proudest achievement. That's a hard one. I think that I have been able to, that's a really hard question. I don't think that I've been doing any one thing long enough. But I think I'm proud of my ability to create a plan and have a vision and execute. I think I've been able to do that over and over again over the last number of years. And, whether it was, becoming like a really great teacher or becoming an engineer or becoming an engineering manager or starting a business and wanting to work for myself, it took some time before I was able to quit my job and be a full-time founder. So I'm just really proud of the fact that I've continued to accomplish these goals that I set for myself.
Beautiful. It's the journey. It's the journey. All right. Are you ready for the final line of questioning?
I am. Let's go.
All right. Let's get going. Okay, who is your biggest inspiration?
Oh, that's easy. I love this question. Okay, I am a huge Beyonce fan. Like,
Okay, all right.
gotta love
Queen
her.
bee.
Queen Bee, definitely, I think Beyonce is someone I really admire because of her strive for greatness. Um, and it's less of a strive from my perspective. It's less of a strive for money and more of a strive for greatness. That's what I get from her. Even though she's been money is a part of it and she's made a lot of money along the way, I think she has really she's so disciplined, she's so focused, she's so diligent and meticulous and thoughtful and intentional in a lot of ways about what she does. I followed her journey very closely, and she's definitely, I think, someone that also helps me get through tough moments.
So awesome. Next question is, who do you hope to uplift with your work?
I love that question. I really want to help. It's a hard question because as much as I love Black people, and I'm driven in many ways by my desire to free Black people. That's probably one of the core reasons why I wake up every day and do the things that I do. But my love for Black people has brought me to a place of having a really strong love for humanity in general. Um, and so I really just want to see a world where people from diverse backgrounds, meaning people that are not white and people that are not men, are able to have the same kinds of opportunities and the same kinds of exposure, the same kinds of happiness and health and wellness, and opportunity, I said that already, but opportunity, the ability to travel and see the world and like meet all these different kinds of people and make a lot of money and set a goal and achieve it, right? Like that kind of limitlessness, I think more people need to have that. And I think using an industry, an up and coming industry that's creating significant wealth to create that kind of experience for a diverse amount of people is what I want to be able to accomplish. And so for us, it's women, it's people of color, it's non-English speakers, it's people from developing or formerly colonized nations. It's a wide subset of people that I want to uplift.
Love it. Love it. Okay, so how do you stay engaged with your motivation? In other words, what keeps you going?
Yeah, I think I'm definitely driven. I'm definitely purpose driven. I definitely want to impact the world. I want to change the world. I want to change the world for the better. Um, and maybe it's naive to think that I can do it or that it's possible, but I think that it's possible. And so I would say that's the thing that drives me the most. I think the second thing that drives me the most is a desire to be wealthy. I think for me, wealth gives access to a certain type of lifestyle, safety, and I'm a type 8. I don't know if you're familiar with Enneagrams. Yeah, but I'm a type 8, which means I'm very focused on safety and security, not just for myself, but for my loved ones. And so it's important to me that I get to a place where my family, my parents, my children, the people around me are that I can protect them. And it's really hard to do that if you don't have money.
Absolutely. I don't want to say like the older I get, but I feel like my perspective now is mostly driven by wealth, but not in terms of greed. It's really for all the things that you've listed out for like protection, like taking care of, like all of the things associated with me accumulating wealth are to help others. Like none of it's been to just, I just want to be wealthy and hold on to money and never do anything with it. It's like, I'm going to be helping people with. I'm just waiting on the universe to like get into it, like come along. I'm getting there, but yeah,
Yeah.
awesome, awesome. Um,
Yeah, I agree. I just to touch on that really quickly,
mhm, mhm,
I think one of the things that people that are driven by changing the world, right, and having a sense of that kind of purpose, I think a lot of us in the past have gone into like social impact work. So whether it's being a social worker, an educator, working at nonprofits, we tend to go into the areas where you're being paid a minimal salary to do a small amount of work on a daily basis. And I think that not a small amount, but to have a day job
mhm.
basically. And I think that it's only recently that a lot of us are starting to realize that the way to really impact the world is to acquire significant amounts of power. And you can't acquire power if you don't have wealth. So, what we really need to be doing is we need to be building businesses, we need to be creating industries, we need to be becoming politicians, even though I could never be a politician myself, like we have to be going after that power, which unfortunately means playing a certain type of game, which
Mhm.
which can suck, but somebody's got to do it.
Exactly. And we are all, um, able to do that. And we just gotta, empower each other. And people have different skill sets where they're gonna shine in different arenas, but we all can do that. And don't doubt yourself. Don't doubt yourself. All right. Well, I have just one more question. What's next for you?
What's next for me? I'm trying to ideally I would like to be able to do another fundraise very soon for my company, so that we can have enough money to really build out our vision. The type of vision that we have is not one where we are going to be generating, crazy amounts of revenue right off the bat. Like we need to have time to build. And so the next phase of work is really just is raising from investors, and it's going to be a hustle. I just did a small raise. We raised 175,000, and that was hard
So,
enough by itself. So now to go raise a couple million, honestly, I'm not excited about it, but we got to do it.
and it will happen because everything you've planned out has been executed. So
Right.
it's what you do at this point.
Right.
All right. Well, do you have any like final thoughts, any words of wisdom you want to share with all of our
Um,
listeners?
I think you've asked some great questions today. Probably some of my favorite questions that I've gotten in an interview. So I think that's
Awesome.
all.
Well, you know what? Thank you so much, everyone. I hope you enjoyed this conversation with Iris Nevins. I so many gems were pulled out of this. I don't know what our clip will be to let people know like this is something you really want to get into. But I so appreciate you joining us. And everyone, take care. See you next time.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.